Greetings and welcome back to Liberty Conspiracy Audios, brought to you by FreeKeene.com. FreeKeene.com provides you audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a freer society in Keene, New Hampshire. Check them out. Remember the website. There is a lot to be learned from the folks in Keene, New Hampshire. FreeKeene.com. Also, thanks to the folks at Freedom Book Club. Freedom Book Club making Liberty a bestseller. FreedomBookClub.com is the website. Check them out and offer your suggestions on the book of the month. You can vote and offer your suggestions. There are lots of things happening at the Freedom Book Club that are going to open things up to you to be able to give great ideas to other freedom lovers out there about books they ought to read. It's FreedomBookClub.com, making freedom a bestseller and offering more attention in the marketplace to the books by libertarians and all the folks out there who believe in freedom. FreedomBookClub.com. Also, I want to thank the folks at Sekel CAI. Sekel CAI is a business that allows you to get what is owed you while you concentrate on your business. Sekel CAI has been doing it for over 50 years. They even purchase charged-off receivables so that you can get the money that's owed you, and they will contact the people who have owed you that money. It's SakelCAI.com, SakelCAI.com, based out of Defiance, Ohio. They provide these services for large businesses. So if you're involved with such a business or you know someone who is, contact Sekel CAI and do business with people who help out the Liberty Conspiracy and really believe in freedom. I'm Gardner Goldsmith. This is part 2 of a multiple-part program devoted to looking at the concept of rights and government. Positive rights, negative rights, everything that we're hearing nowadays about a credit card holder's Bill of Rights, about a renter's Bill of Rights, about the rights of gay people to marry, about the rights of heterosexuals to have a marriage defined only as a man and a woman. What does that all mean? Well, we started things off in our previous podcast, and we're going to continue now with an exploration of rights and government law. This is actually a continuation of our preface to a larger conversation that will involve multiple members of the cabal at the Liberty Conspiracy. Those are the folks who have donated, and we always turn to them first to get their opinions about some of these breaking and hopefully long-lasting conversations. In our first part, we discussed some of the issues that I just mentioned. And we got to a point where we said, if American society has reached a point when even supposed defenders of limited government like Jay Severin, the radio host in Boston, are unwilling to articulate the true nature of rights as a bulwark against government, then American society is in trouble. And I mentioned that maybe, just maybe, it was in trouble for much longer than we suspected. Perhaps even Jefferson, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, was overlooking something. We're going to work towards that, and I want to give you some more background and some more things to think about. And I would love to hear your thoughts as well. Email me at libertyconspiracy@yahoo.com or post in our forum at the Liberty Conspiracy website. Your ideas will be seen by all the folks who go to the website. It's absolutely great to see so many people visiting. I want to continue with part 2 of the written piece that I'm putting together, which will be published once it is done. We're doing this in sections. Will be published at the Liberty Conspiracy as a written blog. And we'll pick up where we left off in the previous production. Over the past century and a half, the idea of rights has been under attack. In some cases, this has been overt. In some cases, more subtle, more insidious. And, of course, it is directly tied to private property and incursions into it made by government, supposedly on behalf of the people. To see how far the American populace has come in how it views rights as positive rather than negative, all one need do is look at how the popular view of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause has changed over the years. As written, the Equal Protection Clause of the 1868 Amendment states that no American citizen shall be deprived by any state of equal protection under the law. This was codified in part in order to try to ensure that blacks and other minorities would be protected by Southern governments just as fully as whites. And we can discuss at a later date the myth that government police actually protect anyone any better than private individuals using their own weapons. The key here is the word protect. When the 14th Amendment was written, the American populace seemed to have a better handle on the traditional rationale for the creation of government: to protect people against other people, to protect them against threats to their lives, liberty, or property by others or by governments. Later, we will investigate the inherent contradiction of forming a government that will, quote, protect you against government, end quote. Some of the founders recognized the inherent fallibility of that concept and tried to restrict government powers while ensuring that people would be able to fight and overthrow government, but they didn't go far enough. That standard for the rationale of government did not last long, for in 1876, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on a case called Munn v. Illinois, concluding that, quote, when private property is devoted to public use, it is subject to public regulation, end quote. It didn't seem to cross the minds of those in the majority that all private enterprises are regulated by others through the consumer's ability to offer or withhold his money for a free market exchange. What was foremost in their politically driven craniums was that government existed in order to make things fair. This pernicious invasion of private property, this inversion of power, this reversal of the tenets upon which the U.S. and various state governments were founded has continued from that time, manifesting itself in myriad regulations that have left business owners reeling, cost consumers trillions of dollars, and fed the popular myth that people have a right to have government tell others how to conduct their businesses or even give them things rather than to protect them, as the 14th Amendment actually states. It has led to the public accommodations portion of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which, through legislative rather than court action, as we saw in 1876, turned all private property into de facto public property in the U.S. and fueled the popular misconception that people have the, quote, right, end quote, to be customers anywhere, to enter the private property of a business whether the owner agrees or not. This has led to all sorts of problems, wherein store owners have had trouble keeping vagrants out of their shops and have had lawsuits filed against them for firing difficult employees who claim they have mental problems or were fired due to the prejudices of the owner. It has led to the 1992 Americans with Disabilities Act, in which the federal government told businesses that they had to accommodate people with disabilities, even to the detriment of their bottom line. Thus, Americans saw the almost laughable effects, such as restaurateurs creating wheelchair ramps only to have the government tell them the ramps were the wrong angle and they had to do it all over again, thus putting them out of business and making it impossible for anyone to eat there, as well as the classic striptease club forced to create wheelchair access to its stage for the possible wheelchair-bound stripper who demands to put on a show. Some might wonder how minorities would get by if government did not interfere in this way. How would they fare if the market weren't regulated in favor of positivism? None other than the great economist Walter Williams has explained that it is, in fact, the free market that helps minorities and small interest groups get what they want. When government gets involved, it, by its nature, must restrict choice or regulate it away. For example, Williams has observed that in the Jim Crow South, where government laws restricted private business owners from, say, offering seats on their trolley cars to black people, the owners would try to skirt the law. Why? Because they had a financial incentive to fill the seats, and any open seat was a loss. Similarly, Williams, who by the way is a black man, and as he says is a very handsome man at that, notes that the moral sanctity of private property must come first. If, he has noted, a hotel owner is unwilling to rent a room to him because Williams is black, then the hotel owner will lose out to a competitor who does open his doors to black men. Economic advantage goes to the open-minded. It's a simple axiom and holds true through the ages. As we've noted in our Liberty Conspiracy audios, government ownership or regulation causes all sorts of unintended consequences. When the government owns something, it tends to cause a so-called tragedy of the commons, which causes overutilization of the resource, new restrictions, and a general trend towards the lowest common denominator, in which minorities are shut out and choices are next to nil. On prior occasions, I've explained that if paper were regulated the way radio and television spectra are regulated, you would suddenly find that what used to be multitudinous choices at your local Borders or newsstand, choices ranging from crochet magazines to pornography, and by the way, you haven't lived till you've seen crochet porn, to political magazines, to music magazines, to great horror magazines like Cemetery Dance, a little plug for those guys, would be gone. Instead, you would see only a few choices, all government approved and politically correct. So is anybody up for the stacks being filled with Garrison Keillor Weekly Magazine? Well, guess what? The government ownership of radio allows you to get NPR, and you pay for it whether you like it or not on the radio. Way to go, Garrison. If government regulates, what happens? Well, you get higher prices and eventually fewer choices, resulting in a